This is Thomas. I guess I am the next speaker in this room 4. And thank you for Tom for the last remaining words. Unfortunately, I couldn't really listen in for the full time.
Hi Thomas, aren't you in room 5?
Well, actually, I was told that first it was 5, and then they said like it should be in 4. So, and I checked this last schedule and said it's 4. So unless you tell me that I have to switch back to 5, which according to the latest schedule doesn't exist anymore, you let me know. Okay. So on this token, for the next 25 minutes or so, I would like to share some of my ideas about human business, or actually that the future of business is human in the post-COVID world. And while talking about the lockdown, fortunately, the lockdown in most countries it's history, or it's slowly history. This year in Germany, it's opening up again. And some people, they say, well, it's great because we're back to normal. Well, fact is there is no normal, not really. But still, business will slowly pick up again, depending on, it doesn't really matter what kind of a business you're in. Could be in the real industry, could be in the highly engineering or computer science. It doesn't really matter. But before I actually talk about the human business, some of the characteristics, I like to shed some light on a typical traditional business. And yes, it could be somewhat provocative, but still gives you an idea. When we look at a traditional business, that is a business really coined and shaped in the last century, the focus of the business is really the enterprise. It's all about the enterprise, it's all about the firm. Thus, the purpose of the business is to create and sell products and services. That means, in other words, the main orientation is on products and services. The organizational structure, or the way work is being organized, is linear. It's top down, you have hierarchies, sometimes you have a matrix organization. We're talking about human resources. So we're not talking about human beings, we're talking about resources. In other words, machines actually valued higher than people. For example, when you sit on a chair and you look at control, they will say, yes, that's a value, whereas you, when you work for the company, you are a cost factor. So therefore, machines are more important than people. And consequently, the whole enterprise is run like an engine. And this actually has been shaped by a guy called Taylor, and he said, the system is more important than the human being, and we should leave it this way, because this way we can actually direct and we can really steer enterprise into the right direction. And if you look at the last century, for most of the time, this actually has been quite accurate. Talking about innovation, of course there's innovation. And the focus on the other side is on planning, and the focus on quick incremental product and process innovation. And it's driven by cutting costs and maximizing profits. Nothing wrong with it, because after all, especially when you look at the last 20, 30, 40 years, it has been quite successful. And the results is like, well, actually, the focus is on short run profits, market capitalization, that is the stock price, is very, very important. It's an indicator for a good, well-run company. And shareholder value, of course, the shareholder value is so important, okay? This is the traditional, I'd say, mechanical business of the 20th century. Nothing wrong with it, you can say, unless there are some limitations. And some of the limitations are the following. There's actually conclusive proof of failure of traditional management. That is, if you look at the rate of return on assets, well, those have fallen by 75% since 1965. And the life expectancy of Fortune 500 firms has dropped from 70 years down to 15 years, and is heading toward 5 years. So in other words, a company in a couple of years can expect to survive for about 5 years. And then only about 1 in 5 workers, that is less than 20% of the workforce, is actively engaged, is really happy on the job. And that's a pretty dismal number. And well, I think we can do much better. Okay, let me say just like one sentence about shareholder value. You may know this guy, Jack Welch, the late Jack Welch, former CEO of General Electric, and he has been the symbol of shareholder value. Well, once he left General Electric, this is what he said about shareholder value. It's the dumbest idea in the world. If you don't believe me, you just Google it, Jack Welch, shareholder value, and then this quote, you will find numerous publications where he says this, basically because he understands if you want to build a sustainable business, focus on shareholder value is the last thing you want to do. And Madeleine Albright, the former US Secretary of State, she summarized the dilemma quite succinctly, and she said, our challenge is to understand and master technology of the 21st century with our thinking of the 20th century and the institutions of the 19th century. In a nutshell, today's and tomorrow's challenges cannot be resolved by yesterday's technical mindset and approaches. So what can we do instead? As I've mentioned, when I talked about human resources, you could hear the irony in my voice maybe. Well, see, I don't want to be treated as or like a resource. I'm a human being. I may not be perfect, but actually my imperfection makes me perfect to a certain extent. I have feelings, I have emotions, I have ideas, I can be very creative. I can learn much faster than, say, machines. I can adapt, I'm flexible. So how can we actually combine this in a business setting? And I'd like to introduce you a number of characteristics of a human business. Here we go. The first one is the human business is focusing on human beings. Now you say, okay, what about the customer? Well, a customer is actually a human being. So we start with the customers as a human being with needs, and of course also expectations, but mostly needs. Then there's the workforce, human beings, not human resources. We have the company. The company by itself is an asset. And you can say it consists of, again, human beings. And you look also at the community business is operating in, that is society. So all we're talking about human beings. And we have to understand, okay, identify who is involved and what are the needs of these human beings. That's the first one. Second, we do not want to satisfy our customers. We do not want to satisfy our customers, but we want to delight them. There's a huge difference. Say you run a hotel. If you just want to satisfy your customers, they may return, but they may not. If you ever stayed in a hotel and you were like totally excited because they really cared for you, you're delighted and you tell your peers about it, and you definitely want to return. If you want to delight a customer, you have to understand the needs of the customers as well as the non-customers. That is that group of customers that have not found your product or services yet. Next, collaboration is very important. Remember, the traditional company is top-down, hierarchical, linear. It's rather mechanical. Maybe you have a matrix organization, but that's pretty much it. True collaboration is like, yes, you do have rules, responsibilities, but teamwork actually happens in an autonomous, self-organizing team, cross-functional, so you can actually, that you're being exposed to new ideas. And it's not that you have a strict matrix, it's more of a network of teams that connect depending on what they're working on. And this network is flexible, it's evolving, and it's adaptive. It's not static. You want to create what I call a happy workplace. A happy workplace is an environment where people really like to come to work. So say Monday morning, they don't say, oh gosh, 5 days to go until the next weekend. No, they're actually excited coming to work. Why? Because like they have friends, they have a wonderful environment where they can play, you can say, they can learn, they can actually contribute to the success of the team and therefore of the company, they can delight customers. This is a happy workplace. And there is much more involved with it. That is, they actually have the space to co-create. That is creating something bigger together. And high performance is not, some how to say, like a foreign term. It's actually being practiced. Why? Because one of the ingredients of high performing teams is not the technology, it's respect for each other. and clear roles and responsibilities, but most of all, it's respect. And you also have the space to make mistakes. Kaizen, the continuous self-improvements, well, you don't have to be perfect, even though this lady practicing yoga seems to be perfect. If there are any yoga teachers on this call, you probably think you can find some things that she can improve. But the Kaizen attitude, or it's a philosophy, is that you constantly look for ways and means, how can you improve your own performance? You don't want to be satisfied with where you are. You want to learn, you want to get better. Not necessarily so much of the competition, that too is a factor, but you know there is so much more to learn, to explore. And you want to make a difference. You want to make an impact. It's not, if you just focus on short-term goals, okay, fine, but sustainability is something you're looking after. It's balancing short, mid, and long-term goals and practices. And this is what making an impact is all about. And you reach out to others. It's not thinking and working in silos, not being open for any dialogue with others. You reach out to other people, you explore things. Maybe you want to create something new. In this case, so something bigger, take on responsibility, and then leave a legacy. And this is what a human business is all about. It's people. It's what I call a wow factor. A wow factor, that term was coined by Tom Peters. He said, like, it's a project, a wow project is a project where people identify with the purpose of the project. They're just thrilled and excited to be part of the project, whatever it is, and they want to leave a legacy. So this is the wow moment, element. So when you look at these characteristics in a nutshell, the focus is on the human being. The purpose of the firm is to delight customers, not satisfy customers, but to go beyond the satisfaction to delight the customers. You can also include non-customers. The organization, well, is characterized by what I summarize or describe as a happy workplace. It could mean anything you like, but when you're happy, when you're joyful at work, you perform better, the quality is better, everyone wins. The teams, they're small, they're cross-functional, they're autonomous, they're self-organizing. Self-organizing does not mean they can do anything they want. I mean, of course, you have a certain structure, you have goals you want to reach, but it's up to the team how they reach these goals. They usually do not need anyone to micromanage them. The organizational structures, they're organically evolving, they're adaptive. So on the other side, we had an organizational mechanical structure, and in the human business, we have an organism. Big difference. Innovation, Kaizen is a central element of this and of the innovative approach, but it's not just focusing on products and process innovation, but also people innovation. Look at this. People or products and processes, they do not innovate. It's the people. And alas, it's kind of strange that, whenever we talk about innovation, we think of products and processes, but very seldom do we talk about people innovation. How long does it take to start with people innovation? Because there's no people innovation, they cannot be product and they cannot be process innovation, unless you want to treat it as a human resource. I guess in that case, it's fine. The results, it's all about value, but it's sustainable value, it's holistic value, it's a holistic, sustainable business value, and it's balancing the short, mid, and long-term goals. There's nothing wrong with focusing on EBIT, that's fine. But EBIT is not everything. If you neglect the long-term perspective of your practices, you will be out of business in no time. When you compare the old and the new, I mean, this is like, if you send me your email, I will be happy to share some of these slides. But this is really like a very nice, comparison. It's about the human being, not the enterprise. It's about delighting customers. It's not just products and services. It's a happy workplace. It's not a linear, mechanical organization without any life. Kaizen is holistic. We're talking about people innovation. We're talking about products and process innovation. but the new element in here is the people innovation. The results, we're talking about value generation, true value generation, not just short-term goals like shareholder value, but actually we balance short, mid, and long-term goals. Okay, so the subtitle of this talk is becoming a human business architect. There are quite a few things you can do. But I'll give you some ideas where you can start. First of all, it takes strong leadership to strike a balance between focusing on the human, focus on the business. That's why we have a human business, but they belong together if you want to create what I call customer value. That is number one thing. People think in the digital age, technology is everything. As a matter of fact, that's not the case. There have been numerous studies, and I have actually been a member of a learning consortium a number of years ago, where we visited some really high-tech companies and to try to find out what is it that makes them tick? Why are they successful? And we found that it's not technology. What's really important is the mindset and a strong inspirational leadership. And the leadership, we actually talked about it a lot already, that is focusing on the whole system, focusing on the human being. What it takes is practical network thinking with foresight. It's not enough that you can connect the dots. You have to look at and understand the overall picture, and you have to be open to change course if you find out it's not the right direction. When I compare traditional, and I say agile and human businesses, some of you may be familiar with agile businesses or agile products development. It's when you develop products in an iterative, incremental fashion. You have cross-functional teams, and it's very dynamic. Quite a few elements of the human business we have seen, but yet there are some key differences. Let's have a look at them. Traditional business focuses on the enterprise, as I've already mentioned. Agile businesses or projects that focus on the customer. This is good. It's where great progress. Human businesses focus on human beings. The values underlying the businesses. In a traditional business, it's basically about survival, self-esteem. It's about, you can say, ego. It's about us. It's not about the others. An agile environment, it's all about transformation. Things are changing. In the human business, we're talking about internal cohesion, making a difference, and being of service to others. And last but not least, goals and practices. When you look at traditional business, we have safety, financial stability, very, very important, loyalty, customer satisfaction, efficiency, cost cutting, as best practices, and bureaucracy. Of course, you cannot run a business without any bureaucracy. So bureaucracy is more like cancer. It's growing and growing, but without adding any value. In an agile environment, you have continuous growth and development. You have accountability, responsibility, and accountability, that is. People know, or the company knows how to adapt and has the courage to empower people. We're talking about team players, and we have a goal orientation. And then in the human business, it's about community building. It's the bigger. It's not just like the human beings and the company or the customers. It's also the community that is the society a company is operating in. We're talking about common values and vision. These are the ingredients for so-called WOW projects. Talk about integrity, openness, strategic partnerships, no longer silo thinking, actualizing meaning and fulfillment. That is like people can actually, we can unfold the potential of the humans in the company. We're talking about mentoring, service to the community and the planet, ethics, compassion, humility, and we're talking about future generations. Why? Because we have a responsibility for it. This, in a nutshell, is actually what I wanted to share with you, in the hope. There is so much more to say, but I also was hoping that actually we still have a chance, possibly to for some questions and then also answers, maybe some dialogue, because if there's something you disagree with, please let us know. My contact information is here, and but I'm ready for comments and as well as questions.